Krishna, everyone, and a warm welcome back once again to our ever ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 88. In this lecture, I would like to continue our discussions on the veena, the musical instrument, the veena. You may remember last week we discussed how Narada Muni acquired this beautiful instrument, how he was trained to play it, and how he travels both in the material world and the spiritual world, playing it while singing the glories of the Lord. All glories to Narada Muni. Srila Rupa Goswami refers to Narada Muni's veena as follows in his Stavamala, wherein he's actually glorifying the holy names of Krishna. He writes, O life of Narada's veena. He begins like that. O life of Narada's veena, O you who are like the waves of essential nectar in the ocean of sweetness. O Krishna Nam, I pray that you please always manifest on my tongue with transcendental rasa. Actually, we must thank Srila Rupa Goswami for his continuous deep realizations, which he shares with us through his writings and his poems on everything Krishna conscious. Srila Baladev Vidyabhusana has written about him in his invocation to his commentary on Rupa Goswami's Utkalika Valari. He writes as follows, May Srila Rupa Goswami, the king of emotional devotees, who makes even stone-like hearts melt with his Utkalika Valari prayers, and who is the bestower of pure devotion for the lotus feet of Shri Radha Govinda, be merciful unto us. Hare Krishna. So regarding the veena is one of the oldest instruments actually recorded in Vedic literature, for it's mentioned in both the Rig Veda and Samavedas. According to the Vedas, a veena player needs to master Vedic wisdom. It's not just enough to know how to play the veena. The Vedas say that a player should also know the secrets of the veena and how it responds specifically to devotional music. The Vedas say that if played properly, according to these injunctions, one can even attain moksha or liberation. I found that interesting. This is confirmed in a shloka from the Yajnavalkya Shruti. Let me remember, yes. One who knows the mysteries of playing the veena is adept in Shruti and Jati, knowledge of the Shastras, and has knowledge of the tala, meaning rhythm, effortlessly finds himself on the way to moksha or liberation. What a quote. And a famous and learned Vedic scholar named Vedator Subharya Sharma, he wrote in his Veena Rahasya, and I'll quote here, in days of yore, yogis who practiced Vasi Yoga, he says the most difficult form of yoga, played the veena when intense heat was generated in their bodies due to their yoga practices. The right kind of raga played on the veena created a sattvic and noble rasa and bhava in such yogis which cooled their bodies. Such yogis needed to be elevated from materialistic and ignoble thoughts and feelings to noble and sattvika feelings and consciousness. Quite eloquent, but interesting. You know, the heat generated from the yoga practice, they could cool it down by playing the veena, a special instrument. So now, veenas are typically around 1 meter or 3.5 feet in length. Although I was reading the size can vary depending on the height of the player. And usually the veena is played while sitting down cross-legged. And I was reading that there's actually different kinds or different types of veenas. There's the Sarasvati veena, the Rudra veena, Chitra veena, there's the Tri Tantri veena, it's kind of a tongue twister, the Tri Tantri veena, and there's the Vichitra veena, which I read is actually the favorite veena of Lalita Saki. That particular veena has technically 4 melody strings, 5 drone strings, and 13 sympathetic strings, for those who are into stringed instruments. Now, one very interesting thing I read in my search is that according to the Shiva Purana, Ravana, the Asura Ravana, was actually an expert veena player. Actually, therein, Ravana is described as a staunch devotee of Lord Shiva, as well as a wise man, who had complete knowledge of the Vedas. However, as we know, he was also completely and extremely arrogant, which is ultimately the reason for his downfall. So once, it's described in the Shiva Purana, Ravana wanted to show off his strength to Shiva. How? By lifting Mount Kailash. And while doing so, he reached down and effortlessly lifted up this huge mountain with Shiva and Parvati still sitting on his peak. Now feeling a sudden, you could say, earthquake, and realizing what Ravana was doing, Lord Shiva decided to teach him a lesson. So Lord Shiva very lightly pressed down the big toe of his left foot, and immediately the mountain started coming down on Ravana, threatening to crush him under it. So it's described that Ravana thought fast. And knowing how Lord Shiva is fond of music, he immediately tore open his chest with his fingernails and pulled out his own nerves and then wound them around his toes so as to form, it's described, a veena of some sorts. And then sitting in the same uncomfortable position, he started playing on his own jiva veena, it's described, his jiva veena. Literally, you could say, playing his heart and soul. Now, moved by this melodious music, Lord Shiva swayed in bliss just for a moment, because he likes music. And without realizing it, lifted his toe slightly off the ground. This eased the pressure, allowing Ravana to scramble out in a hurry. Then realizing his mistake, this, could you say, mighty king of Lanka approached Lord Shiva and boom, fell down on the ground like a rod, a danda. He did dandavats, falling at his feet and apologizing profusely. Hare Krishna. So I thought that was interesting. He created veena from his own nerves. Famous, actually. And actually, I read that in the past, several hundred years ago, in the courts of the Rajput kings in Rajasthan, poets and singers used to play a stringed instrument. It was called a Ravanahata. They called it a Ravanahata, an instrument that it said was inspired by the veena made by Ravana from his own body. And actually I've seen several times when I'm in Jaipur that this instrument is still being played by musicians in the evenings out at the Amber Fort. They sit on the steps of the fort and they play for tourists. I've seen that particular instrument. Anyway, now we'll move on to the veena's role in Radha and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Be good to get back to Braj. After all, this is part of a mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, not Ravana's pastimes with Lord Shiva in a ghastly rasa, vibhashtaha. So, one of my favorite Vrindavan poets, who are so important to evoke emotion in our hearts, spiritual emotion, bhakti, is Sri Vallabha Das. And he composed a beautiful poem several hundred years ago describing, how could you say, a midday pastime of a concert of music that once took place in the Vrindavan forest. Therein, he describes, in front of a large assembly of gopis, the divine couple, Radha and Krishna, were playing flute and veena together. In front of the gopis, they were playing the flute and the veena together. And he mentions the poem should be sung in the Raga Saranga melody. So here it is. He wrote, it's actually in present tense. Sri Krishna, drenched in the hue of love, is sitting with Sri Radha inside a Kunja Bhavan, playing Raga Saranga through the nectarian flute on his lips. In spite of being the enchanter, very skilled, extremely clever, and full of attributes, he's playing the wrong note, deliberately this time. Then his beloved Sri Radha, who is a mine of all fine arts, who is the abode of all attributes, who is extremely intelligent, picks up her veena and plays the same note, but in a different style. Sri Vallabha Das says, hearing this, my Lord, the upholder of Sri Giriraj, is extremely pleased, and giving her a garland from his chest, lovingly says, well done, wonderful, so good, so fine. You are most beautiful and the very source of all my happiness. Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani Ki. And in his Utkalika Valari, verse 13, our beloved Sri Rupa Goswami also alludes to the fact that sometimes Radha and Krishna play their favorite instruments together. He writes, O Sri Krishna, the song of your flute is the Augusta Muni that swallows the ocean of Sri Radha's unyielding self-restraint. O Sri Radhika, your skill at playing the veena is so extraordinary that your music bewitches the deer-like heart of he who enchants the entire world. What would we know without these acharyas? We get this glimpse into the spiritual world so beautifully. Now, in his commentary to this particular verse, which I just quoted by Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan writes, he wrote a commentary on Utkalika Valari. He writes, quote, this verse indicates that Radha and Krishna are dedicated to pleasing each other through the expert playing of their instruments. Short but very sweet commentary. Now in Svashankalpa Prakash Stotra, verse 2, our beloved Raghunath Das Goswami gives us another glimpse of the Veena's role in Vrindavan Leela. In the following stanza, he is expressing his own personal desire to associate with the Gopi friends of Radharani and participate in their pastimes with her. He writes, like addressing a Gopi, O friend, when being asked by playful and charming Lalita, will Sri Radha happily, sweetly, affectionately, and shyly teach me again and again your splendid and peerless pastimes, filled with many concealed riddles and puns, while accompanied by the beautiful sound of her, Sri Radha's veena. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami gives yet another hint of the veena in Sri Radha's pastimes in his Stavavali. Stavavali has different songs. So in the song called Premam Bhoja Maranda Stavaraja, he describes, he mentions the veena again. And interestingly enough, I was reading that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's description of Srimati Radharani's transcendental body in Chaitanya Charitamrita, verses 165 to 181, is actually based on the book, Stavavali, by Raghunath Das Goswami. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's translation of the original Sanskrit of the song, Premam Bhoja Maranda, reads as follows. So nice. She sleeps in her room with the aroma of pride, and when she lies down in her bed, the transcendental variety of her loving ecstasies are like a jeweled locket in the midst of her necklace of separation. Her transcendental chest is covered by her sari in the form of affection and anger towards Krishna. She has a string instrument known as a Kachapi Veena, which is the fame and fortune that actually dries up the faces of the other gopis. She always keeps her hands on the shoulder of her gopi friend, who represents her youthful beauty, and although she is highly qualified with so many spiritual assets, she is nonetheless affected by the Cupid known as Krishna. We heard the Veena again. Now, not only is Sri Radha expert, as we've been hearing, in playing the Veena, but so is her Saki, Tungavidya. I was reading Tungavidya is a celebrated music teacher who's also an expert singer. She sings in the style known as Marga, M-A-R-G-A. And it's said that with her Veena and her singing, she provides background music for the divine couple's evening pastimes. Wherever they are in the evening, Tungavidya comes and she sings and plays the Veena. So just see how relevant is the Veena in Braj Leela. Such an important instrument. Now here's something really interesting. When I read this, I was like, what? Krishna also plays the Veena. Yes, Krishna plays the Veena. The description of his Veena is found in Radhakrishna Ganudesh Dipika, Lagu Bhaga, text 121 to 124 by Rupa Goswami. He writes, Krishna has several flutes, one of which is Bhuvana Mohini. Another flute is named Mahananda. It is like a fish hook that captures the fish of Srimati Radharani's heart and mind. Another flute, which has 6 holes, is known as Madana Jan Kriti. Krishna's flute, named Sarala, makes a low, tone-like sound like softly singing cuckoos. He's very fond of playing this flute in the ragas Godi and Garjari. Then next, his Veena is named Tarangini. There you go. His Veena is named Tarangini. Hare Krishna. Then he concludes, the wonderful sacred mantra he chants is the name of his dearmost Srimati Radharani. That's Krishna's mantra. The wonderful sacred mantra he chants is the name of his dearmost Radharani. And so too is our mantra, because in the Hare Krishna mantra we have Sri Radha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Krishna's favorite instrument is the flute. Well, Radha's favorite instrument is this Veena called Kachapi Veena. But what's amazing is that Radharani also plays the flute, as we just heard. Krishna's favorite instrument, Krishna plays her favorite instrument, a Veena, so she plays his favorite instrument, a flute. And according to the gopis, she actually plays the flute better than Krishna. Shastra says that she even teaches Krishna how to play the flute. In fact, the place where Srimati Radharani used to give flute lessons to Krishna in Vrindavan, it's in a particular kunja called Nidhuvan in Vrindavan. And that place is still visited and worshipped by pilgrims even today, that particular place, that particular forest. There's even a temple of Srimati Radharani at the exact place where she gave Krishna flute lessons. We've been there with our Parikama party in Kartik. And interestingly, the famous deity of Banki Bihari, he's so famous in Vrindavan, appeared near there as well, in a place called Ranga Mahal in that particular forest, Nidhuvan. And on the far side of Nidhuvan, I'm remembering, is the samadhi of the famous Saint Swami Haridas. Now, it might be good to mention at this point that oral tradition has it that Swami Haridas was the guru of Tansen, the famous musician in the court of the Emperor Akbar several hundred years ago. Some of you may remember that several years ago we lectured on Tansen. And it is said that Akbar once came to Nidhuvan with Tansen to hear Swami Haridas sing, because he was such a beautiful singer with a veena. And the Emperor Akbar came dressed as a commoner, and he watched and listened with great satisfaction as Tansen first performed a song for his guru, Swami Haridas. He actually performed it, I was reading, in the Drupad Raga, accompanied by his veena. And when his student, Tansen, had finished, then Swami Haridas took the veena and pointed out a mistake that Tansen had made in the bhajan. And then, famously, Swami Haridas sang the same raga so sweetly that all the birds and the animals in the nearby forest gathered to hear. Just in your mind's eye, you can see this saint is playing the veena and singing a bhajan, glorifying Radha and Krishna so sweetly. And so, with so much bhakti, he touched the hearts of all the animals. The deer, the rabbits, the squirrels, the chipmunks, the butterflies, the bees, they all came and they assembled to hear. Wow. And Akbar had never heard such beautiful singing. It's described, nor had he ever seen such a devotional performance that attracted all kinds of living entities. So afterwards, Akbar, he just begged, he repeatedly asked to do some service for Swami Haridas, as is the custom when you get some mercy from a sadhu. But Swami Haridas replied that he didn't need anything. He's a true sadhu. He has everything, Krishna Bhakti. So he suggested that the emperor could do something for Vrindavan, something for Braj. He said, "My dear emperor, you are so persistent and have such a keen desire, so please kindly get one of the broken stairs on the Jamuna Ghat repaired. There's a broken stair on a ghat down by the Jamuna, just repair that." And he then directed his disciples to take the emperor to this ghat where there's a broken stair. Now, Akbar was disappointed and somewhat offended. He thought, Swami Haridas is telling me I am the king of Hindustan, to get a damaged stair repaired? I'm the one who has constructed huge forts and built big mosques, and now his disciples are taking me to see a broken stair which I should get repaired. He's thinking, certainly this sage, Swami Haridas, is a great musician, but it seems to me he's a little bit mad at the same time. Nevertheless, he remained calm and followed Swami Haridas's students to the banks of the Jamuna. And when they reached their intended destination, Swami Haridas's disciples eagerly pointed out the broken down staircase. But Akbar, who obviously had no understanding of the transcendental nature of Vrindavan, just stared at this very simple, how could you say, stone mortar masonry, again wondering why the saint, Swami Haridas, was engaging him in such a menial task. But Vrindavan is full of wonders. Suddenly, right before his eyes, the entire ghat appeared to him to be built of precious metals like gold and silver and platinum, and studded with all kinds of rare gems. It's described like rubies and diamonds, sapphires, emeralds, and all these jewels were glowing everywhere, like the sun. Only that particular stair, a particular stair on that staircase, which was indicated by Swami Haridasa's disciples, was missing a significant number of such jewels. So overwhelmed by what he saw, Akbar realized that he wouldn't be able to get the matching gems to repair that particular stair on the staircase, even if he spent his entire royal treasury to repair it. He must have had a big treasury because he was emperor. He realized, how can there's so many jewels on this one block on the staircase? I can't do that. He fainted. When he woke up, he realized at that point that Swami Haridas was more than just an expert player of the veena and singer. And he realized that, most importantly, Vrindavan is not an ordinary place. And then suddenly this whole scene before him changed again, and the ghat appeared as an ordinary stone, mortar, masonry. So he was in shock. Vrindavan is such an amazing place. So still in shock, Akbar walked back to Swami Haridasa's hut, and he just fell before him, dandabats, like a rod. Dandabat means you fall like a rod. And he was just stunned, and he was expressing great respect for this great saint. And then he admitted to him his incapacity to touch anything in Vrindavan. How could he do anything for Vrindavan? So he's the emperor, now he's being very humbled by this transcendental abode of Vrindavan, of which he had a vision by the mercy of the saints. And he just, after paying his respects, he left for Delhi along with Tansen. How could he fix that ghat? It was all the mercy of Swami Haridas to show him the glories of Braj. Amazing story. Vrindavan is such an amazing place. It brings to mind one of my favorite verses. Again from Utkalika Valari by Rupa Goswami. Utkalika Valari means, translated, a vine of hopes. So text 66. We hear the miracles that happen in Vrindavan. O handsome, fragrant Tamal desire tree, blooming in the Vrindavan forest, and embraced by the Madhavi vine of the goddess ruling this forest. O tree, the shade of whose glory protects the world from a host of burning sufferings. What wonderful fruits do the people find at your feet? Vrindavan, what wonderful fruits do the people find at your feet? Not just, mangoes and oranges and whatever, but the mysteries of Vrindavan and all its glories are revealed to a sincere devotee. When, oh when will that day be ours? So, back to Srimati Radharani and the power of her favored instrument, the Kachapi Veena. Srila Rupa Goswami, again in Utkalika Valari, verse 28, he writes, we can get some more appreciation for her Veena. He writes, O Vrindavaneshwari, Shri Radhika, the sound of your Veena overpowers and silences the flute song of he who is crowned with the peacock feather. When will the music of your Veena reach my ears? When will the music of your Veena reach my ears? Now, in his own words, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that Sri Radha's Veena overpowers Krishna in his Stavavali. It's in the section called Sri Vishaka Nanda Bhita Stotra, verse 121. He writes as follows. The sound of Radha's Veena makes Krishna tremble, and the flute slips from his hand. The tinkling of her bracelets and ornaments makes him forget his own body and the path that leads him back to his home. Another, we could say absolute, if we need be, an absolute confirmation that Radharani is expert in playing the Veena comes from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who in his commentary on Brahma Samhita, we all know that it's actually published, his commentary on Brahma Samhita on text 37, in that commentary and in text 37, he famously reveals the 64 transcendental arts that Srimati Radharani is expert in. And we always read this, isn't it, on Radhastami, her appearance day? We all read the 64 arts that she's expert in. And therein he describes, in text 37, that the 28th art form that she's famous for is Vinada Muraka Padya, meaning Sri Radha is expert in the art of playing the Veena and a small drum, most wonderfully. That's what he says. He confirms. She's expert in the art of playing the Veena, and he includes a small drum, most wonderfully. Hare Krishna. Now finally, in the book Sangita Rat Naka by Sri Srangadev, I found this book in the Vrindavan Research Institute, we find the prana mantra for the Veena. Now there's a lot of Sanskrit, I won't be able to repeat all that, recite all that, but here is a prana mantra for this most amazing instrument. He writes, even if one simply sees or touches a Veena, it bestows comfort both during and after one's lifetime. It cleanses and purifies all sins and evils, not only of the downtrodden, but also of those who have committed heinous crimes. I offer my respects to the glorious Veena instrument. I offer my respects to the glorious Veena instrument, and so do we. The author further attributes different parts of the Veena to the different demigods who reside in the Veena, just like in the Tridanda of a sannyasi, it said 33 million demigods reside within the danda of a sannyasi. So also within this particular instrument, the demigods reside. He writes, Lord Shiva is in the Veena's body, Parvati in its strings, Lord Vishnu in the bridge, Lakshmi in the main resonator, Brahma in the second resonator, Saraswati in the nabi, which is the center part of the chestboard, which resonates at the actual sound. Vasuki, the serpent king, is in the pegs of the Veena. The moon is in the jivala, which is describe the cotton thread pieces that are used between the string and the bridge. And the sun god is in the frets. And he concludes that because all the devatas are invoked in the Veena, it is indeed a very auspicious instrument. Maybe this talk, this lecture will encourage some devotees to learn to play the Veena. So I would like to actually end today with a Sanskrit poem by a South Indian Vaishnava named Deshikant Swami. It's a prayer that he offers to his spiritual master in the introduction to his book called Daya Satakam. Daya Satakam is translated as 100 verses dedicated to the mercy of the Lord and Guru. So he writes, so beautiful. I am but a child in age, knowledge, and devotion, but my Guru, as part of his deeds, placed me on the high pedestal as an acharya. Not content with that, he also created beautiful poetry too, using me as an instrument. He has put me in the place of a high quality vina, which produces melodies that gladdens the heart and uplifts the soul. Even though I am, by myself, like the vina, incapable of composing poetry, my guru, like an expert musician who can produce soul-stirring music from the most ineffective of instruments, has composed this excellent poetical work of Daya Satakam, using me as but an instrument. I offer my respectful obeisances to him again and again and again. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. It's wonderful researching this transcendental instrument. This is part 2. We'll move on to another item next Friday, which will stimulate somehow or other our ecstasy and love for Radha and Krishna. We'll make it there one day, don't worry. Shravanam Kirtanam brings Krishna Smaranam. Just keep hearing about Braj, and studying and going there and rolling in the dust and embracing the desire trees and praying to Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas that we can reside there eternally. It will happen, but gradually, specifically by hearing. Shravanam is the first of the 9 processes. So see you next week. Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Sharma Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani and her Veena ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Gauranitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yoga ki, Nitai Gaur Pimanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Shyam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada, the Revealer.